In a world that chases noise, this audiobook invites you into the power of the quiet. Unravels 12 timeless parables where silence doesn't just speak, it transforms. Because real power? It never begs for attention. It moves in stillness. And the truths that shape your destiny, they aren't shouted, they're whispered. The Whispering Codex. Written and published by Book Library. Introduction. You're standing at the edge of something rare. Not a story told in ink, but a journey whispered through stillness. This isn't just a book, it's a living code. A hidden trail stitched between the spaces where words fall quiet and truth begins to rise. The Whispering Codex carries 30 parables, stories of wanderers, healers, merchants, and scribes. Each one a flame in the dark, flickering softly, never demanding your attention, only deserving it. Their journeys take you through frost-kissed forests, silent stone chambers, and markets that glow beneath moonlight. But no matter where the path bends, they all return to one simple truth. Silence teaches what noise never can. In ancient times, these lessons were passed in hushed voices, traded in secret like rare gold. They weren't announced. They were understood. And now they've found you. So lean in, not with your ears, but with your presence. Because these are not tales meant to be rushed. They are seeds, and they grow only in stillness. You'll meet Michael, who paid a steep price for speaking too soon. Jessica, who healed a wound words couldn't touch. Daniel, who waited until silence revealed the truth. And Amanda, whose whisper stirred the hearts of kings. Let their footsteps walk beside yours, beside candlelight, under stars, by fire or by quiet dawn. Pause often, reflect deeply. Not every treasure is loud. Some are found only when you're brave enough to listen. And if you dare to slow your breath, to hold your thoughts like glass, you'll begin to hear what the world has forgotten, that the most sacred wisdom doesn't shout. It whispers. Now breathe in. Let the Codex begin. Chapter 1. The Merchant's Golden Tongue. In the heart of Alexandria, where ocean winds carried the scent of cardamom and ambition, lived a man whose name echoed through every port and marketplace. Michael Rodriguez wasn't just a spice merchant, he was the spice merchant. His ships cut across the Mediterranean like arrows of fortune, charting secret routes whispered only in shadows. Traders envied him, patrons admired him, and in every crowded tavern, Michael told his story with pride. "No one sails like me," he'd declare, lifting a jeweled hand toward the heavens. "Others follow maps. I make them." Each boast drew cheers. Each tale, louder than the last. And in the corner, always watching, sat a man who never spoke. A beggar, mute, wrapped in silence like a cloak. But his eyes, they carried a depth that words could never hold. Night after night, he listened. Not to the noise, but to what pulsed beneath it. Then came a night with no moon. Michael's finest ship, loaded with rare saffron, cinnamon, and clove, set sail under cover of darkness. But before the sun could rise, it was gone. Pirates. They had struck with precision, as if they'd read his map, memorized his schedule, and waited for his pride to light the way. By morning, Michael stood in his warehouse hollow. Empty crates, crushed dreams, debts whispering louder than applause ever had. And there, like a shadow waiting for the lesson to land, stood the beggar, at his doorstep. Without a word, he knelt and traced something in the dust. The sweetest fruit attracts the sharpest knife. The loudest man draws the earliest blade. Then he turned and walked, and Michael, with nothing left but regret, followed. They arrived at the market. But this time Michael watched. Not the noisemakers. Not the boastful traders flaunting their wins. But the quiet ones. The ones who moved like water, unnoticed, steady, calm. No grand speeches. No loud claims. Yet their stalls overflowed. Their wealth grew in silence. It hit Michael like thunder. He hadn't been robbed. He'd given his secrets away, one loud word at a time. With a humbled voice, he whispered to the silent man beside him, "I understand now. Real success doesn't scream. It moves in silence." The beggar smiled gently and wrote one final truth. "Your tongue was gold, but silence is platinum." From that moment on, Alexandria began to speak of a different Michael Rodriguez. Not the loud merchant, the wise one, the one who traded noise for discipline and built a fortune 10 times greater than before. Because this time, it was guarded by silence. Reflection practice, the merchant's meditation, find a quiet space. Sit with your back straight and your mind clear. Place a small coin on your tongue. Yes, an actual coin. Feel its weight. It's cold metal. Hold it there for 5 minutes. Say nothing. Feel every urge to prove, to speak, to explain. Let those urges pass like distant waves. This is not just silence. It's mastery. Because knowing when not to speak is a wealth most never earn. Remember this. Loud success invites envy. Quiet progress builds empires. And the universe always listens more closely when you speak less. As Michael learned, fortune doesn't just favor the bold. It rewards the discreet. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Book Library on YouTube. We bring you valuable audiobooks every week to expand your knowledge and enhance your personal growth. And give this video a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2, The Healer's Burden. In a quiet valley where the ancient pines whispered their secrets to the wind, there lived a healer named Jessica Thompson. Her small cottage, filled with bundles of drying herbs, sacred crystals, and the scent of healing, was a haven for the weary. Villagers came to her with their aches, their pains, their wounds, and their stories. But the price of healing, Jessica soon discovered, wasn't just physical. It was emotional, and it was heavy. For as she healed their bodies, her patients shared their souls. Secrets too painful to speak, fears too deep to name, desires forbidden by the world. And slowly, over time, her mind became a vessel overflowing with stories not her own. Night after night, she lay awake, haunted by the weight of these untold tales. The thoughts of others had become her burden. Perhaps, she thought, if I could share this weight, speak it to someone, anyone, it would lift from my shoulders. She considered confiding in the village priestess, seeking release from the pressure. But before she could act, an ancient woman appeared at her door, a presence so powerful it seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. With silver hair glowing like starlight, the elder spoke gently. I sense you drowning in waters that are not your own, young healer. Jessica's heart cracked open, and tears filled her eyes. How can I carry so much? She whispered. How can I hold the weight of so many unspoken truths without breaking? The elder, without a word, led her to a sacred pool hidden in the valley's heart. Beneath the moon, its surface was a perfect mirror, reflecting the heavens above in crystal clarity. Then, the elder dropped a single pebble into the still water. Together, they watched as the ripples disturbed the perfect reflection of the stars. See, the elder said softly, how one small disturbance shatters the sky's mirror. Jessica nodded, feeling the weight of the metaphor. But the elder simply waited. And slowly the ripples faded. The water calmed. The stars returned to their perfect reflection. Healing, the elder whispered, lies not in stirring the waters, but in becoming still enough to reflect the truth. She continued, her voice like the soft rustle of leaves. When people share their deepest secrets, they don't seek an echo. They seek a space, a vessel, that can hold their truth without distorting it. Your role, young healer, is not to carry the weight of others' stories. It is to be like this pool, still, deep, and able to reflect only light, no matter how turbulent the world may be around you. In that moment, Jessica understood. Her healing didn't lie in the stories she carried, but in the stillness she embodied. From that day forward, Jessica Thompson became known as the silent healer. Her presence became a medicine all its own, her quiet understanding more potent than any herb she had ever cultivated. The secrets shared in her cottage dissolved like morning mist, leaving only healing in their wake. Reflection practice, the healer's meditation. Find a quiet space where you can be alone with your thoughts. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself as a still, calm pool, perfectly clear and at peace. As thoughts, memories, and stories rise within you, don't cling to them. Don't push them away. Simply observe. Watch them settle on their own as you remain undisturbed. In time, this practice will allow you to become a vessel of peace, a space where truth can flow freely without distortion. Remember this. The highest service you can offer isn't in speaking the truth, but in becoming so pure, so still, that the truth reflects naturally within you. Just like Jessica Thompson discovered, healing happens most powerfully when we become silent enough to let it. Chapter 3. The Scribe's Dilemma. In the marble heart of ancient Persepolis, a city so steeped in silence that even whispers echoed like thunder, there lived a man whose words never made a sound. Daniel Sullivan was the royal scribe. By day, he documented every royal decree, every judgment handed down from the throne, every carefully chosen word that shaped a kingdom's fate. But by night, he became something far more dangerous, an observer of truth. Daniel had the eyes of a hawk and the heart of a historian. He noticed things others dismissed: trembling hands, sideways glances, silent servants slipping through the halls after dusk. His private scrolls held patterns, and patterns never lie. One quiet evening, under the soft flicker of lamplight, Daniel's pen halted mid-sentence. He leaned back, reading the web he had unknowingly woven across weeks of observations. The truth hit like a dagger. The king was being poisoned, not by an enemy from afar, but by the very man who stood closest to his throne, his most trusted advisor. Daniel's chest tightened. If he exposed the truth, it could mean death, for himself, for the court, maybe even for the kingdom. But if he stayed silent, the king would die. And so he sat, a man torn between truth and timing, his conscience pinned beneath the weight of knowledge too sharp to ignore. That night, as shadows deepened and silence thickened, a figure stepped into his chamber, unannounced yet expected. He wore the robes of a forgotten era, an ancient record keeper, one said to have served 3 dynasties and vanished without a trace. His eyes, storm gray and timeless, scanned Daniel's scrolls with calm intensity. "You see clearly," the elder said, his voice barely above breath, "but clarity is not wisdom. Wisdom is knowing what truth serves, and when." Then he beckoned Daniel to follow him. They walked together through corridors untouched by time, arriving at the palace archives, a place where dust-blanketed forgotten scrolls and history slept in silence. From the shadows, the elder retrieved 3 ancient parchments. "These scribes also saw the truth," he said. "One spoke too soon and ignited a war. One spoke too late and watched a massacre unfold. The third," he smiled, "spoke at the right time, to the right person in the right way." Then, with a finger traced through the dust, the elder wrote, "Truth without timing is like an arrow without aim. Both can strike the wrong heart." Daniel understood. He didn't need a grand gesture. He needed precision. The next morning, the palace cook accidentally requested the royal food taster to sample the king's tea, right as the royal guard entered the chamber. The poison was discovered. The advisor was arrested. And Daniel, his name never touched the record. His truth moved the kingdom, without ever saying a word. Person in lotus position male sign reflection practice. The scribe's ritual. Each evening, take a moment to write down 3 truths you've observed that day, things you've seen, realized, or sensed. Then ask yourself, whose life does this truth serve? When would be the right moment to share it, if at all? What form would give it the greatest impact? A word, an action, a silence. Then burn the paper. Let the ashes rise, and remember, some truths are not meant to be carried forward. They are meant to teach and dissolve. Never forget this. Knowledge is power, but wisdom is restraint. And the wisest among us know that some truths are arrows best left in the quiver until the moment is right. Just like Daniel Sullivan learned, sometimes the most powerful thing a scribe can do is let his pen rest. Chapter 4. The Oracle's Paradox. High atop the mist-draped cliffs of Mount Parnassus, where the wind carried the whispers of the unseen and the stones hummed with ancient secrets, there lived a young oracle named Amanda Garcia. Unlike those who came before her, oracles who roared their visions like thunder from the sacred throne, Amanda's prophecies arrived like snowfall at dawn, soft, subtle, and serene. But to the temple elders, that wasn't enough. "An oracle must shake the heavens," they scolded. "How will kings and conquerors heed a voice they can barely hear?" So Amanda tried. She raised her voice, forced her breath to thunder through the sacred halls. But the louder she spoke, the dimmer her visions became. What once flowed like crystal now clouded like stormed glass. And with every forced word, truth seemed to slip further away. One night, aching with frustration and doubt, Amanda fell to her knees in the inner sanctum, the air thick with the temple's sacred mist. And then, from the vapor, a figure emerged. She moved like moonlight on water, her silver hair weightless, her presence timeless. It was the first oracle, the original voice of the mountain, long gone from this world, yet never far. "Why do you shout at those who come seeking truth?" the spirit asked gently. Amanda, her voice quivering, replied, "The elders say I must speak with power, that no one will listen unless I roar." The spirit turned to the eternal flame flickering in the chamber. "Watch," she whispered. The fire danced, casting delicate shadows on the stone walls, strong, beautiful, alive. Does fire need to roar to prove it burns? Does wisdom need to scream to prove it's real? She then led Amanda to the sacred spring, where the prophetic vapors rose from the earth like breath itself. "True prophecy," the spirit said, does not come from the tongue. It rises from the stillness between your thoughts. The gods whisper because mortals are deaf to thunder. Amanda felt her chest loosen, her breath slow. Let your words rise like incense, the spirit continued. Subtle, yet strong enough to reach the soul. Speak gently, and they will have to listen differently. And in listening differently, they will hear more. From that moment forward, Amanda no longer raised her voice. She lowered the noise of the world around her. She became known as the Whispering Oracle. And those who truly sought wisdom learned to quiet their minds, lean in close, and let her voice wash over them like wind through pine. Kings removed their crowns and knelt beside her in silence. Generals abandoned their swords just to sit at her feet and hear truth unarmed. And in that shared quiet, her visions became the clearest the temple had ever known. Reflection practice, the oracle's ritual. Sit in front of a single, steady candle flame. Let its light guide you inward. Watch it flicker. Let your breath slow. Allow your thoughts to settle, like snow falling in an untouched forest. Then listen, not to your mind, but to what rests beneath your mind. That soft, steady voice, the one that doesn't compete, doesn't demand, that is the voice of wisdom. Practice until you can hear it clearly. Not just in stillness, but within yourself. Remember this, the deepest truths don't shout. They wait, patiently, to be heard by those who are quiet enough to receive them. As Amanda Garcia discovered, the voice of wisdom doesn't shake the world. It moves it with the power of a whisper. Thanks for listening to Book Library. If this moved you, share, and subscribe. Chapter 5, The Fisherman's Net. There's a kind of wisdom that only comes from still water and early mornings. Joshua Walker was the kind of man most people overlooked. Just a humble fisherman living by the edge of an ancient lake, where the mist curled around the stones like forgotten prayers. But Joshua had a gift. He knew the value of silence, of timing, and of watching what others missed. While other fishermen cast their nets under the heat of the day, Joshua rose long before sunrise, rowing quietly through the fog, guided only by the stars and his own steady breath. He didn't fish for noise. He fished for peace. But one morning changed everything. As he drifted through the dawn haze, Joshua heard voices, low, urgent, and unaware of the silent boat nearby. Two nobles were speaking, their words clear through the mist. They were planning to poison the city's water supply and blame a neighboring kingdom to spark war. In an instant, Joshua's net wasn't filled with fish. It was filled with something far heavier, truth. And it weighed on him. Every familiar face he passed in the market now seemed fragile. Every child laughing by the well, every elder sipping from a jar. He saw them differently. Because he knew. And knowledge like that, it changes you. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't speak. So he did the only thing that made sense. He went to see the one man who once knew what to do with dangerous truths. Old Wee, a recluse who lived in a stone cave, wrapped in silence and legend. They said he used to advise kings. Now he advised no one, unless you came with a burden too heavy to carry alone. When Joshua arrived, the old man was surrounded by strange jars, some sealed with wax, others with hidden lids, all of them the same from the outside. Old Wee held one up and looked at Joshua. "You see this," he said, tapping the jar. "Could be spring water. Could be poison. From the outside, no one can tell. That's how truth works too." He poured water from one vessel to another, letting Joshua watch how the shape changed everything. Some jars trapped the water until it turned stale. Others let it flow too freely. But one, carefully designed, poured slowly, intentionally, with control. "Truth," he said, "is like water in the desert. Precious, but deadly if spilled in the wrong place." That was the lesson. It wasn't just about knowing something. It was about how you hold it. And that's when Joshua knew what he had to do. The next time the nobles returned to the lake to speak of their plan, a trusted palace guard, a friend of Joshua's, coincidentally fishing nearby, overheard every word. The plan was exposed. The plot stopped. And Joshua, he simply went back to fishing. No headlines. No credit. No need. Because he understood what most people never learn. Not all catches should be kept. And some truths are most powerful when handled in silence. Reflection practice, the still water ritual. At dawn or dusk, find a place where you can sit with still water. Even if it's just a bowl, a puddle, or your own breath reflecting in a mirror. Watch the surface. Notice how it reflects both light and shadow, without judgment, without holding on. Ask yourself, what truths am I carrying right now? Am I the right vessel for them? What would wisdom do? Hold, release, or share? Sit with that, and let stillness guide you. Here's the takeaway. You don't need to shout to make an impact. You don't need a platform to protect people. You just need the courage to act quietly, when it matters most. As Joshua Walker discovered, real strength isn't always in the catch. It's in knowing when to let go. Chapter 6. The Blacksmith's Forge. In the shadow of a sleeping volcano, where steam hissed from ancient cracks and the ground pulsed with heat beneath your feet, lived a blacksmith named Sarah Mitchell. Her forge didn't just shape metal. It shaped legends. They said her fire burned hotter than any other. But that wasn't the secret to her steel. The real secret? Sarah didn't just work with fire. She listened to it. She understood the language of molten iron, how it hummed when ready to bend, how it rang when too brittle to be touched. She knew when to strike, when to wait, and most importantly, when to stay silent. Because the forge is sacred, and sacred places hold more than heat, they hold secrets. Sarah had an apprentice, young Thomas Hayes, eager, talented, but reckless with his words. He delivered weapons to noble houses, and somewhere between the front gate and the forge, he began enjoying the sound of his own voice a little too much. He gossiped. About who commissioned what. About whispered symbols etched into dagger blades. About noble women requesting hidden compartments in their jewelry. He spoke of things he never understood, but should have known better than to repeat. And then one night, as Sarah quenched a blade in silence, something changed. The metal hissed violently. The room thickened with heat. And through the rising steam stepped a figure from the old blacksmith legends. The Forge Mother, the spirit of fire, the first to teach humankind the art of shaping steel. Her hair flickered like braided copper, her skin glowed like forged iron, and her voice rang out like a hammer on anvil. Your apprentice speaks what should stay silent, she said. The forge remembers, and when its memories are shared carelessly, they burn. The message was clear, and the consequences swift. The very next day, Thomas let slip a detail he never should have shared, about a noble's order for specialized blades. By nightfall, shadows were already searching for him. Sarah found him curled behind sacks of coal, pale and shaking. She said nothing, just led him back to the forge. There, she pulled an iron rod glowing with heat and held it in the air. Watch carefully, she said. Then she plunged it into water. The steam screamed. The room filled with smoke. Nearby, a cloth caught a lick of heat and burned, leaving a blackened mark. Secrets, she said, are like this iron. Held with skill, they become tools. Dropped carelessly, they scorch everything they touch. Thomas never forgot that hiss. And from that day forward, he learned the lesson his master lived by. Some truths are forged in fire, but only those who respect the heat can carry them without getting burned. Reflection practice, the fire-breathing ritual. Sit before a candle flame. Let its warmth ground you. Breathe in slowly. Imagine drawing light into your chest, gathering knowledge. Hold it gently, like hot iron resting on the anvil. Now exhale slowly, letting it go with intention. Watch how the flame flickers. Learn the rhythm of power, not in its heat, but in its control. Practice this daily, and you'll begin to feel the difference between raw force and refined wisdom. Here's what matters most. It's not the heat of truth that gives it power. It's your ability to carry it with discipline, care, and respect. As Sarah Mitchell discovered, the most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who knows exactly when to speak and when to let truth cool in silence. Chapter 7. The Shepherd's Wisdom. There's something ancient in the wind when you walk the highlands at dawn, something older than memory, deeper than words. Timothy Allen was just a young shepherd, living a simple life in the hills where mist draped the stones like forgotten prayers. While others relied on whistles and sticks to move their flocks, Timothy had something different, something unexplainable. He could hear them, not just the bleats or the rustles. He heard meaning. He understood the soft warnings in a sheep's breath, the distant conversations of ravens perched in trees, the careful, coded language of foxes weaving between the hedges. At first, it was fun, magical even, but then came the deeper truths. He began hearing the wolves, mapping their hunger, the eagles, charting paths to hidden valleys, the deer, whispering about sacred springs never touched by human footsteps. And suddenly, his gift wasn't light anymore. It was heavy. Should he warn the village? Should he keep the animals' trust? Should he be the bridge or the boundary? These questions sat on his shoulders like wet stone. One evening, as twilight poured gold across the hills, Timothy followed a particularly restless lamb. It led him, without meaning to an ancient stone circle, half sunken into the earth like a forgotten song. There, by a small fire, sat an elderly woman with silver hair crowned in oak leaves. Elizabeth Hayes, though he didn't yet know her name. She looked like she belonged to the land itself. Without turning, she said, "You hear the voices, don't you?" He nodded, startled. "It's been 3 centuries," she whispered, "since I met another who could understand the speech of the wild." Timothy sank to the ground beside her, unsure of what to say. "They tell me things," he finally confessed. "Things I'm not sure I should repeat." Elizabeth tossed a handful of herbs into the fire. Sweet smoke curled into the dusk. "Watch," she said. From the edge of the trees, a deer stepped into the clearing. Graceful, unafraid. It bowed its head to her and shared something in complete silence. Yet it said everything. Elizabeth turned back to Timothy. "Nature's wisdom is like an underground stream," she said. "Most of it flows quietly beneath the surface, unseen. But sometimes, when the time is right, it rises to nourish everything around it." She looked him in the eyes. "The challenge isn't in hearing. It's in knowing what is meant to stay hidden and what is meant to be shared." She taught him not just to listen with his ears, but with his heart, to feel the weight of a secret, not just the words. "You're not here to own nature's truth," she said. "You're here to be the wind through the reeds, to let her song pass through you when it's needed, and hold silence when it's not." And in that moment, Timothy understood, being trusted with truth is not a power. It's a privilege, and it comes with the sacred duty to protect what is not yours to speak. Reflection practice, the animal listening ritual. Find a quiet place in nature, a garden, a park, a forest's edge. Sit still long enough that the birds forget you're there. Don't try to hear. Don't analyze. Just be. Let the sounds of the wild wash over you like gentle rain. Feel the rhythm of life moving around you. Not for you, but beside you. And in that silence, listen with your heart. You'll know when something is meant for you, and when it's meant to remain wild. Remember this. True wisdom isn't in repeating what you hear. It's in honoring the trust that comes with hearing it. As Timothy Allen discovered, the greatest gift isn't knowing nature's secrets. It's being trusted enough to keep them. Chapter 8. The Weaver's Pattern. High in the misty folds of the mountains, where the wind moved like whispered stories between ancient pines, lived a weaver named Stephanie Martinez. Her workshop wasn't just a place of thread and wool, it was a place of wonder. Each morning, she would sit before her loom, facing the rising sun. And as the light streamed through her window, the threads she worked with would glow, not with color alone, but with meaning. Unlike others in her village who followed old, familiar patterns passed down for generations, Stephanie let her hands move intuitively, guided not by tradition, but by something deeper, something unseen. And then one day, the impossible happened. As she wove, her fingers created a swirling pattern, seemingly random, until she looked up and noticed the storm clouds on the horizon. They matched. Exactly. Every curl, every shift, every shape in her tapestry was mirrored in the sky. By nightfall, the storm unfolded just as she had woven it. At first, she thought it was coincidence. But then it happened again. And again. Her patterns began to echo the flight of migrating birds, the shape of spring floods, even the quiet, invisible pull that guided travelers and strangers to her village. Soon, what she wove wasn't just beauty. It was prophecy, and it scared her. Each thread she pulled revealed more, secrets she never asked to know. Political unrest, brewing wars, private truths hidden deep within hearts far away. It was as though the loom had become a mirror to fate itself, and her hands were shaping it. One quiet morning, while collecting dye herbs near the forest's edge, Stephanie came upon a cloaked figure seated beside a dew-covered spider's web. The monk introduced himself as Benjamin Hayes, but it was the way he watched the spider that made her stop and listen. "Your hands speak too loudly," he said, gently touching her calloused palms. "Come sit. Watch this." Together, they watched the spider move, silent, fluid, precise. "She weaves," he whispered, "not just with silk, but with space." He pointed between the strands. "The power of the web isn't in the threads alone, but in the stillness between them. That's where the true pattern lives." Benjamin revealed he was part of an ancient order, pattern keepers, trained to see the difference between what should be shaped and what should be left untouched. "Some designs," he said, "are sacred because they remain unwoven. They belong to the realm of possibility, not certainty." Stephanie felt something shift within her. Her whole life, she believed her gift was in her ability to bring visions into form. But now she saw the deeper truth. Wisdom isn't just in what we create. It's also in what we allow to remain wild, free, and beautifully unknown. Thread reflection practice, the thread meditation. Hold a single thread in your hand. Look at it closely. Then shift your focus to the shadow it casts. Notice how what isn't there still shapes what is. Breathe deeply. Let your awareness wander, not into what you can control, but into what you're willing to let go of. Let the silence between things teach you more than the things themselves. Some truths aren't meant to be captured. They're meant to inspire and drift like mist through imagination. And here's the soul of this story. Not every vision is meant to be acted upon. Not every insight is meant to become a decision. As Stephanie Martinez discovered, true mastery is not in weaving every pattern you see, but in knowing which ones to leave untouched, so they can keep growing inside the silence of what might be. Chapter 9. The Gardener's Seeds. In the Emperor's Sacred Gardens, where every petal held a memory and every breeze carried whispers from springs long past, worked a quiet man named Matthew Parker. He wasn't like the other imperial gardeners who barked orders across the grounds and boasted loudly of their pruning techniques and fertilizer formulas. While they shouted, Matthew whispered. While they forced growth, he invited it. He moved gently among the beds, crouching close to seedlings as if sharing secrets, offering soft encouragement to the roots. He didn't treat his plants like projects. He treated them like companions. The others mocked him, of course, called him strange, old-fashioned, even foolish. But they couldn't explain what happened next. Matthew's garden began to flourish like nothing anyone had ever seen. Roses bloomed in the wrong season, and yet more vibrant than ever. Fruit trees overflowed with harvests that broke records. Medicinal herbs pulsed with such potency that even palace doctors came seeking his clippings. One misty morning, as Matthew knelt beside a shy sapling, whispering to it like an old friend, he noticed something unusual. An elderly woman moved through the garden barefoot, collecting dew in a green jade bowl. Her long silver hair shimmered with living vines, and butterflies fluttered about her as if they'd known her their entire lives. She smiled at Matthew and said, "You've remembered the first language." "I am Catherine Hayes," she continued, her voice soft like rustling leaves, keeper of the original garden, where the plants still remember how to speak with those who listen. She dipped her fingers into the dew and gently touched them to Matthew's lips. In that moment, everything changed. The garden came alive with clarity. He didn't just feel the plants anymore. He understood them. He could hear their stories, the way roots remembered centuries of footsteps, the way petals held echoes of every lullaby, every war, every broken promise, and every whispered hope. "Plants drink in more than water and sun," Catherine said. "They drink in intention. They bloom beneath kindness. They shrink beneath anger." She showed him how roses opened when poetry was spoken nearby, how thyme and lavender grew stronger when they were thanked aloud, how trees reached higher when songs of praise echoed beneath their branches. But the greatest wisdom of the garden, she taught, was found in silence. When we stopped talking and simply listened, because nature doesn't grow by force. It grows by invitation, by stillness, by reverence. Reflection ritual, the whisper of growth. Find a single growing thing, a houseplant, a tree, a flower, even a blade of grass. Sit quietly beside it. Feel your breath slow. Match the rhythm of its stillness. Then, when you're ready, whisper something true. Not for the plant, but for you. And watch. Not for movement, but for what changes inside you when you speak gently instead of loudly. Here's what this chapter reminds us. Growth doesn't come from force. It comes from presence, from care, from quiet consistency. Just as Matthew Parker discovered, the most powerful transformations don't begin with commands. They begin with whispers and the courage to listen. Chapter 10. The Scholar's Library. Beneath the mountains where time moved slower than stone and silence echoed like a prayer, there existed a library unlike any other, carved directly into the earth's living heart. Its walls were smooth rock. Its ceilings held the weight of 1,000 years. And its shelves whispered. Here, amidst the flicker of candlelight and the faint smell of parchment and dust, worked a quiet scholar named Nicole Adams. Nicole wasn't like the other academics who collected knowledge like trophies, hungry to display how much they knew. While others raced to decode, translate, and teach, Nicole listened. To the stillness between the lines. To the feeling a book carried before a word was even read. She treated every scroll like a sacred encounter, not something to conquer, but something to be humbled by. Then one night, while sorting a collection of untouched scrolls near the back of the archives, her fingers brushed against something strange. It was a book, but unlike anything she had ever seen. Bound in shimmering opal-toned leather, it felt warm to the touch, almost alive. She opened it and gasped. The pages were blank at first, pure and untouched. But then golden letters began to bloom across the surface, like sunlight breaking through morning fog. Lines appeared, then vanished. New ones flowed in their place. And no matter how long she stared, the writing kept changing, as if the book was responding to her presence. Nicole would soon learn something even more remarkable. This book, this living manuscript, revealed a different story to every person who opened it. Those who came with ego, with the need to be seen as wise, found only blank pages. But those who arrived with humility, those who approached with quiet curiosity, were given truths so profound, it felt like the stars themselves leaned in to listen. While sitting alone one evening, trying to understand this strange book's purpose, Nicole was approached by an old man in a robe that shimmered like lamplight woven with shadow. His name was Raymond Hayes, the oldest librarian in the archive, or so the stories said. "You found the Codex of Unspoken Truths," he said, with a voice like wind moving through shelves. "It reveals only what must be remembered, not repeated." Nicole asked, "But what's the purpose of knowledge that cannot be shared?" Raymond smiled, then gestured to the endless shelves around them. "Some truths are like delicate blossoms," he explained. "They bloom only in the dark. Shine too much light on them too soon, and they die before they can be understood." He led her through the archive, pointing out scrolls that changed depending on whether they were read aloud or silently. Books that vanished when touched with arrogance, and pages that wrote nothing at all, yet changed everything inside the reader who sat with them. "True wisdom," Raymond whispered, "isn't just knowing what to say. It's knowing when to hold back, when to protect truth, until the world is ready to receive it. Sacred practice, the guardian meditation. Think of a truth, a real, living truth that you hold close to your heart. Not something you tell others, but something that shaped you, that taught you something painful, something beautiful, or something still unfolding. Now don't speak it. Just feel it. Let it take root in the silence. Let it deepen, grow, and evolve inside you. Not to be hidden, but to be honored. Because not every truth is meant to be shouted. Some are seeds that must stay underground a little longer, until the right season calls them to bloom. And here's the message at the heart of this story. You don't have to share everything you know. Some knowledge is sacred. Some growth is private. Some wisdom finds its power not in being broadcast, but in being carried. Just as Nicole Adams discovered, the greatest libraries aren't built from books alone. They're built from the silences we protect between what we know and what the world isn't ready for yet. Chapter 11. The Mapmaker's Territory. In a quiet valley wrapped in morning mist, where forgotten trails whispered through tall grass, and even the wind seemed to carry secrets, lived a man named Robert Chun. He wasn't your typical mapmaker. While others worked to capture every corner of the earth with precise lines and measurements, Robert had a different philosophy. Some places weren't meant to be pinned down. His workshop looked nothing like the cartographer's rooms in town. Instead of maps filled with mountains and rivers, Robert's walls were covered in spirals, symbols, and strange markings that looked more like dreams than destinations. Some showed paths that didn't appear on any compass, currents of wind that only moved at night, forests that seemed to breathe, crossroads that came and went like memories fading at dawn. To Robert, the world wasn't just terrain. It was a living story, and not every chapter was ready to be written. One evening, as he sat beside a flickering lantern, sketching what he called a map of uncertainty, he heard a soft knock. At the door stood a man cloaked in gray, his voice low and clear. "I'm Anthony Hayes of the Invisible Guild. We protect the places that can't and shouldn't be mapped." Anthony carried no tools, only a scroll, blank at first glance. But when unrolled, it shimmered with shifting light. Valleys appeared, then vanished. Ridges pulsed, only to melt into mist. There were no names, no roads, just movement, like the land itself was breathing. "This," Anthony said, "is a map that only reveals what you're ready to see." He explained how certain paths were meant to be felt, not charted. How some territories only existed between thoughts, in the pauses between questions, in the silence between one decision and the next. The moment you try to control them, he said, they disappear. Like a dream you try too hard to remember. Robert sat with those words. They didn't just sound poetic, they felt true. He realized that real guidance doesn't always come from routes and borders. Sometimes it comes from surrender, from letting the path rise under your feet, not ahead of them. Cartographer's meditation, a practice for the inner trail. Close your eyes. Picture a map, not of the world outside, but of your inner landscape. Don't draw it. Don't name it. Just feel it. Notice the open fields of peace, the steep climbs of fear, the foggy spaces of confusion, and the glowing corners of clarity. Now leave it blank. Let the silence speak. Let the unmarked places remain sacred. Because not all wisdom needs to be labeled. Some of it is meant to be lived into. Here's the truth Robert Chin came to understand, and what this chapter leaves us with. In a world obsessed with certainty, with schedules, GPS, step-by-step formulas, the most powerful journeys are still the ones we can't predict. Not every path is supposed to be mapped. Not every answer is meant to be known ahead of time. Some of life's most meaningful territories, you only find them by getting lost and trusting that your heart knows the way. Chapter 12, The Musician's Silent Song. In a palace above the clouds, where the stars were close enough to touch and every breeze hummed like a hymn, there lived a young musician named Ashley Rodriguez. She played in the court of the heavens, among immortals and sages, where every performance echoed through eternity. But while others fought to impress with thunderous solos and grand crescendos, Ashley was known for something far rarer. She played nothing. While flutes soared and drums roared, Ashley would sit quietly beside her instrument, a sacred guqin carved from moonstone, her fingers poised, yet still. People whispered. Some mocked. Why won't she play? Is she afraid? Has she forgotten the notes? But they didn't understand. Ashley wasn't silent because she lacked a song. She was silent because her soul was the song. One night, beneath a sky painted in silver light, Ashley felt a melody rise within her, so profound it brought tears without sound. But still she didn't play. And then, from the shadows between stars, a figure emerged, cloaked not in cloth, but in vibration. Her presence felt like a single note held forever. I am Helen Hayes, the woman said, her voice a harmony of light. Guardian of the unsung. She held no instrument, only her breath and silence. Then, without a sound, she moved her hands through the air, and suddenly Ashley felt the music, a symphony that spoke directly to her bones. A melody that couldn't be heard with ears, but only felt with the soul. This, Helen said, is the music between notes. She taught Ashley something no school or master had ever revealed. That some melodies are so powerful, so sacred, they're not meant to be played. They're meant to be held, protected, kept alive in the quiet heart of a true artist. Silent song ritual, a musician's meditation. Find a quiet space. Sit with your breath. And listen, not to a song, not to a sound, but to the music that already lives inside you. Feel it rise like a tide, a rhythm in your bones, a harmony in your chest. Don't speak it. Don't sing it. Just hold it. Watch how it shifts you, how it teaches you, how it heals without a single note escaping into the world. Because here's what Ashley Rodriguez learned, and what we're meant to remember. In a world obsessed with noise, with applause and attention, with proving and performing, there's a sacred power in what we don't express. Some songs are meant to stay unplayed. Some truths too tender for words. Some gifts become greater when kept in the heart. Not all masterpieces are meant for an audience. Some are whispered only between you and the universe. The stories you've heard weren't just parables, they were mirrors, keys, seeds. Now, the silence between their lines belongs to you. Let their truths echo softly in your choices, in the spaces between your words, in the quiet power you carry forward. Because the real Codex is not written in ink, it's written in the way you walk through the world. With humility, with intention, with the courage to listen when others speak, and the wisdom to speak only when silence has been heard. Now go live the unwritten chapters. Thank you for joining us on this sacred journey through the Whispering Codex. If these stories touched something deep within you, help them reach others, like share and subscribe. This is Book Library, where silence speaks, and your next breakthrough is just one audiobook away.